Boy, did we cover a lot on this week's episode of the Miles to Go podcast. I am finally recapping the rest of my Tokyo trip, and there are some interesting Chase Inc. referral changes that nobody other than Chase is really going to like. Flying Blue is increasing the value of elite status, something we don't see a whole lot nowadays. A dad jumped off a cruise ship to rescue his daughter, and I've got questions for Kerr on this. Ritz-Carlton is hurting on their cruise ship business, but maybe not as much as Spirit Airlines, who's pulling down a number of routes and changing their flight bundles. We cover that as well as the normal banter between Mr. Kerr and I, all on this week's episode of the Miles to Go podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. Little technical difficulties with Ed not being able to hit the big red button so we could record, but here we are with a long docket. And just at the outset, I would just say, if there's anybody out there that knows somebody at Topo Chico, we need to keep Mr. Kerr from drinking Kroger seltzer. And the only way to do that is to go against his instincts and provide him with enough Topo Chico in his house so we don't have these issues. Good to see.
That would be a lot of Topo Chico.
Hey.
I mean, a lot.
You know, I'm willing to sacrifice. I'll take the smaller amount of Topo Chico.
Yeah, you probably drink out of a plastic bottle, too.
It's hard to find glass bottles in Vegas unless you're the Rhino, and they're really expensive. That's a much different podcast. All right.
Yeah, I've seen some of those price lists on social media. I haven't been there. Anyways.
On social media, right. We got a lot of stuff on the docket today. Not sure we're going to get to all of it, but I am getting ready to embark on my European trip. So we've got our summer travels coming up with Mr. Kerr heading to Europe after me. So there'll be lots of fun stuff to report on later on. And I think, Mr. Kerr, we finally need to get to like a quick recap of my Tokyo trip since I've been ostracized by a few Slack members that were down at Disney with me this weekend. Chris and Alex are like, yeah, you've been saying you're going to recap your Alaska, your Tokyo trip for 7 weeks, 8 weeks.
So let's just knock it out. Let's get it out of the way.
Knock it out. All right, a little bit of housekeeping first. If you're new to the show, you can text us or leave us a voicemail, 571-293-6659. He is at Kerr Points on all those social media channels. I am at Pizza in Motion. The Miles to Go podcast on TikTok and Instagram are also places where you can find us hanging out. Yeah, so we talked about the flights over and back. So I won't get into that, but I'll give a little recap of our time at Disney Springs. And then I don't know, when you lived there, did you ever stay at any of the? I know you stayed at some of the hotels that were right there by Fantasy Springs, by Tokyo Disney. But did you ever stay in like the Tokyo Bay area?
Tokyo Bay, no. Center of Tokyo, yeah. And I did the Hilton over by Disney, which used to be a fantastic use of points back in the day. I don't even want to wager how many points that costs tonight now.
Yeah, I wouldn't wager on that. So yeah, this day was focused around the Star Wars convention that was going on in late April. Holy cow! I mean, that's a lot. There were a lot of people there for that. It was pretty crazy. It was pretty
Star Wars convention in Tokyo. A lot of people.
Yeah,
never would have guessed.
Yeah, I know, pretty crazy. So we decided we were going to stay at Tokyo Disney for a couple days, and then we were going to stay at Hyatt Regency Tokyo Bay for the Star Wars convention. So a couple of things there. First off, the really interesting on the Disney Springs, the Fantasy Springs side of things. Fantasy Springs is a new part on the backside of Tokyo Disney Sea, and this is right where all of those hotels are that are not part of the Tokyo Disney project. So the Sheraton, I think there's an IHG property over there, Hilton, and what's interesting about it is you'll probably remember it from back in the day. Like if you're staying at one of those off-property branded hotels at Tokyo Disney, you have to hop on a shuttle to get to the park entrances. Well, there's now a park entrance for the back of Tokyo Disney Sea, or Fantasy Springs, if you will, that's literally a 50-foot walk from the front door of that Sheraton. You come out the front of the Sheraton, you cross the road, and that monorail station that's there that would take you around to the front, there's now a walk-in entrance to the back. So those are all now park front hotels. And I would argue, after having stayed at Fantasy Springs, they're probably your better option unless you're as rich as Mr. Kerr is, and then maybe you have other options.
Yeah. No, I mean those Disney official hotels in Tokyo are insanely expensive, and I don't think all the reviews coming out of them are the best. I think it's probably fun to do, but yeah, if it's now right there, we don't even have to get on the monorail. That's what we always did. You walk out from the Hilton, get on the monorail, go around to the Disney Sea entrance. Then that's probably a great view, as long as they didn't increase the price accordingly. But they probably did.
Probably. So what we found with Fantasy Springs, we stayed in Fantasy Springs in a Rapunzel room. One of the things that I think Tokyo Disney does well is a lot of the rooms have more than 2 beds. So if you have multiple kids, it's easy to find a room where everybody can find a place to sleep. So there are rooms with like 3 twin beds, as an example. The room that we stayed in had 2 queen beds, and then it had it was called an alcove suite. It had essentially a kind of like a full-size bed in a little bit of an alcove, which, our son stayed in, but, anybody who likes Rapunzel theming would have loved. It was, decorated very well. So I think the rooms were really nice. And I think all the rooms that we've stayed in any of the Tokyo Disney properties are nice. But the thing that surprised me was that there was a surprising lack of services and public space in the hotel. So not a cheap hotel. It's integrated into the parks. There's an entrance right underneath the hotel. So that's a big benefit. There's one restaurant. It's a buffet restaurant. They serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner there. It's okay, not great. There's a lounge that has 3 or 4 menu items as like set platters that you can order and nothing else. And then there's a snack shop, not even a gift shop, just like a place where you can buy like chips and, bottles of water and stuff like that. There's no gift shop in the hotel. There's no other activities. There's one very small walking path inside the grounds of the hotel that sort of overlooks the park, and there's like a little like waterfall. And then in the Richard Kerr disgustingly expensive category, there's the chateau side of the property, which is a private entrance separate from Fantasy Springs, which is already pricey. They have their own restaurant on the chateau side. A lot of those properties have balconies that overlook Fantasy Springs. Those room rates are, I mean, filthy. So, like, one of the rooms that was available for our time was going for $3,000 a night, U.S.
Love it.
Yeah.
Good for them.
And you have your own private restaurant, which I'm sure you pay extra for. So I think it was weird that there weren't a lot of things to do inside the hotel. It's a great location, but, I mean, really what you're getting is a shortcut entrance into the park, which you can get from the Sheraton across the street. Room's nice, all that, but definitely overpriced for what I thought we were getting.
That's a bit of a theme with Disney hotels is maximize room footprint, minimize public spaces. Like you just stayed at Riviera, and there's not really, I mean, there's a lobby, but compared to the other properties, it's not much of a lobby to speak of. It's like how many rooms can we fit in this footprint so that, we can maximize revenue rather than what is like a grand public space like the old, Polynesian and Grand Floridian and Contemporary that have huge public spaces. That's just not the case with newer properties. So not surprising. The most surprising thing is that the Japanese use the word alcove. They chose that. Like not.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a translation.
Yeah. Really? That's the English word they chose? Interesting.
I will say that Riviera has many more services than Fantasy Springs has. And I agree that the lobby is small, but there's an actual gift shop. There's a fast service, like a quick service in the basement. Again, nothing special, but there is a quick service, so you can grab a sandwich.
All the $6 Uncrustables that you want.
Yes, stale Uncrustables too. And then there's things like outside of the Riviera grounds on the back, there's like bocce ball, and there's like a big chessboard or checkers board, like even sitting inside the pools. But definitely no pools, which is like not a thing at the Tokyo Disney hotels anyway. But no like little activities for kids to do or things like that. Like whereas like Tokyo Disneyland, there's at least some fun things to see in the lobby, along with multiple restaurants and all that stuff. So I just felt it was a little bit sparse, especially with just one restaurant, because what we found was, unlike some other Disney fans, I don't make all my dining bookings ahead of time. And so when we got there, it was like, great, we have 3 total reservation slots left, and they're at like 6 a.m. and 9:45 p.m. if you want to eat in the restaurant. So takes a lot of planning, very high capacity, definitely a struggle for us. Don't know that I would stay Fantasy Springs again.
Not to belabor Disney too much for the folks who are like, please stop talking about Disney. But as I understand it, Fantasy Springs is like, you can't just buy a ticket and go in the park.
Now you can.
Now you can. Okay.
Now you can. They've opened up, which
sounded
why
super stressful to me when you guys were going back and forth about this.
Yeah. But this is part and parcel of why that back entrance is so key now for those branded off properties like the Sheraton, is that you can now go in through what was the dedicated Fantasy Springs entrance that you could only get into if you had the ultra expensive hotel reservation at Disney Fantasy Springs. So now open to the general public. Lines are very long, and those rides are very popular. Obviously, very hard to get on them, but accessible. And unlike unlike the U.S. parks, only one gift shop, which gets like mauled by people.
Yeah, picked
So.
clean every day by the Japanese. They love their merch.
Yep. So quick bit on Hyatt Regency Tokyo Bay, which was the other new property that we stayed at when we were there. So as you noted about Center Tokyo, I mean Tokyo's a massive sprawling complex of different
Pieces of concrete and steel everywhere.
Yes, and I mean just what is it, an hour and 20 minutes from Narita to downtown Tokyo, and effectively, like we were staying in downtown Tokyo, and it took us an hour to get to Toroso, the new fish market, when we were there. The previous time. So Hyatt Regency Tokyo Bay is, if you think about a clock where Tokyo is in the center and Narita is, call it 2 o'clock on the clock, like way out in the boonies. Hyatt Regency Tokyo Bay is out past Tokyo Disneyland on the way to Narita, and it's its own little like man-made area. There's like some properties that look sort of like timeshare-ish and stuff like that. The property itself was wonderful. It's a Category 3 property, plenty of award night availability while we were there, and there was a club lounge. There was and the interesting thing about the club lounge was the club lounge just worked off of the regular breakfast restaurant. So effectively, what you did is you went into the club lounge throughout the day, and there were snacks there all day long. But for breakfast, you walked into the club lounge, and there were a couple of servers there who would serve you, and then you could go into the massive buffet that was in the main restaurant. So they would bring you coffee and drinks and all that stuff. So it's effectively just like eating in the main restaurant, except you always had a dedicated seat for the club. Rooftop bar, awesome sushi restaurant, teppanyaki, like surprisingly good food for a property that's 9,000 to 15,000 Hyatt points per night. So like lots of things to love about the property. Shuttles to Tokyo Disney, shuttles to the subway to get downtown, but I mean a solid 40 minutes from downtown Tokyo.
Yeah, I didn't even know there's this property way out there past Disney. That's a hot minute away from Tokyo.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a way to do Tokyo at a discount, since a lot of the properties in Tokyo are expensive, if you don't mind the transit time, like you're looking at minimum 25-30 minutes to anything that isn't Tokyo Disney, because you got to get to the train system and then get to wherever you want to go. I mean, Japan Rail is incredibly efficient and very price effective. So like in the narrow world where it's like, hey, I want to take a trip to Tokyo, but I don't want to break the bank, I would actually consider Hyatt Regency Tokyo Bay, as long as you knew what you were getting into, which was extra transit time. But like I said, service of the property was incredible. Elite recognition, all of it. I was really, really impressed with the property. I just wish it were closer. But again, like trade-off, I mean, a lot of the popular properties in downtown Tokyo are Category 5 or Category 6 Hyatt properties, and they're going to cost you a lot more points per night.
Yeah. Luckily, it just wasn't the case when I was there. I mean, you get the Hyatt Regency on a Cat 1 to 4 certificate, and that club lounging experience is fantastic. And I know they get a lot more properties now, which are many more points. But it's
many.
But rest assured, whatever hotel you go to in Japan, 9 out of 10 chance is going to be a fantastic experience that blows anything here in North America out of the water.
Yeah, just reading off categories: Hyatt Regency Tokyo, Category 5; Grand Hyatt Tokyo, Category 8; Hyatt House Tokyo Shibuya, Category 5; Andaz Tokyo, Category 8; Hotel Toranamon Hills, Category 7; Hyatt Regency Yokohama, which is definitely a hike. That's the other Category 3, and the Park Hyatt Tokyo is still closed. So, huge disparity in pricing there. I mean, I'm surprised the Grand is Category 8.
That's rough. That's
So three times the price of Hyatt Regency Tokyo Bay to stay at Grand Hyatt Tokyo, 45,000 points a night. So,
dude, those prices are so inflated, man. We used to go down there for nothing. I mean, there were Category 3s, if I remember right, and that Yokohama one was even cheaper than that. Which, if you want to do Japanese baseball, I can't recommend enough going down and seeing a Yokohama Bay Stars game, staying at that Hyatt Regency down there and checking out. Yokohama's got some cool stuff in it. It is definitely a hike away from Tokyo. By a hike, I mean like a 45-minute train ride. So like just relatively speaking. But the Bay Stars were my home team when I was there, and I went to a lot of Bay Stars games, and it's just such a blast, man.
Yeah, no, we did not get to do Japanese baseball this trip, but I do want to do it. My son has not had a chance to experience it yet, so we got to go back because I had a ton of fun when I did it.
The mascot of the Bay Stars, you're never going to ask this. You're going to say a Bay Star. You would be wrong. It is a blue Power Ranger that is out on the field constantly throughout the game. Why? Only just Japanese know, but it is.
Only Japanese though.
Yeah.
And you'll recall that I actually did misindicate or guessed incorrectly that you were wearing a Yokohama Bay Stars hat on the show a while ago when it turned out it was actually your son's team
Yeah.
with the same initials.
I have a Bay Stars jersey somewhere. I need to whip back out.
Oh, we should definitely do that for a show. Absolutely. I will. The listeners and the viewers will expect that soon, Mr. Kerr. So start digging.
Probably got to get back into fighting shape there to get that jersey back. We're working on it. We're making progress. Making progress, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, so where to next? You want to talk about Chase Inc. referrals? Because I think this is a fairly new topic and I wouldn't say surprising, but definitely a little bit of a game changer if this continues to roll out this way.
Yeah, this is breaking as of this morning of recording here on July 2nd, ahead of the 4th of July weekend. By the time you're listening to this, hope everybody had a fantastic and safe July 4th. But this morning, Travel on Points, some people put up in their Facebook group a couple of new terms and conditions. The first we'll go over is the Chase business card customers. It says, effective October 7th, 2025, you will be eligible to receive referral bonus awards for new Chase business card customers only. Referrals of individuals with existing Chase business cards no longer qualify for the referral bonus. And we quickly read over this in the pre-show, and Ed started just hopping up and tapping his toes and singing and hollering. And you're excited about this, man. Why?
All the
so
above.
Excited about people not getting points. Why does this make so much sense?
Well, it makes sense. None of us are going to love it. By the way, I would also clarify too, looking at the verbiage in one place, it says Chase business, and other places it says Chase business card. And so I think there's just a little bit of clarity there because you can have a Chase business account that's not a credit card account. So at any rate, significantly restricting who gets referral bonuses. I'll say, dating back to the days that you were working at The Points Guy and I was doing a bunch of freelance writing for them, one of the things I said about this whole credit card ecosystem is, why would it make sense for a bank to pay you to refer them a customer they already have? Like, it just doesn't make sense. If you, Richard Kerr, are going to educate me on Chase Inc. card and I sign up for one, well, okay, you did them a service, you got them a new customer, they pay you for that, I understand that. Now let's say you tell me about a different card and you've already acquired me, Chase has already acquired me as a customer. I understand there's some argument that maybe I didn't know about the other card. But I mean, the reality is that Chase is marketing that card to me directly in some way, shape, or form. And I probably did get an email from them. So if I click on your link instead of their link, it costs them another referral bonus for a customer they already have. And I just always felt like efficiency would catch up with the credit card referral model and these sorts of things would go away. And it just took a lot longer than I was expecting.
I mean, same. We've talked about it many times on the show. Like, I do not understand how they're paying this much to acquire a customer and then chopping it up as a win. I think the only case where it would make sense is if you refer somebody up to a premium card. So if you're a Chase Inc. card holder and your buddy refers you to the new Chase Sapphire Reserve for Business, which is just a completely different price point, maybe you still get the referral bonus then. Otherwise, though, to your point, like, how do you know they're not just like already know about the card and just trying to hook a friend up and costing Chase another 20,000 points? So I think it makes sense. I think Chase and all of the banks, this is not Chase specific, but all of the banks could do a better job in how they market their other products to their existing customers. None of them are particularly effective, although they do give me some awareness. But yeah, this makes sense. So change number one, but again, that's October 7th. So if you're going to refer anybody who's an existing Chase card holder to another Chase business card, you got until October 7th.
Yeah, for what it's worth too, one last point on this. I think this is also another one of those like lagging indicators that we're seeing an economic slowdown. The credit card companies are looking for ways to trim costs. When you're getting a ton of inbound cards and you're growing business like crazy, most businesses aren't generally focused on like picking up every penny. This is one of those things to help reduce costs, which likely means that they're looking for other ways to continue growth. And growth is probably slowing in other areas.
On to the other second change, which is a little spicier. Look at these folks catching on finally over at all the different banks. It says on the personal, actually this is for both. It looks like personal and business, maybe still unclear since it just came out this morning. But here's the language and some of the referral terms that is new. If 10 or more of your friends use the referral URL within a month to apply, at Chase's discretion, you may not receive any bonus points for the friends who apply that month and are approved for the card. So it's a little bit counterintuitive because the most that you can usually do is 5 referrals at 20,000 points for a maximum of 100,000
Right.
points. So this is saying if 10 or more friends, which you're thinking, well, if I already met my 5, why would 10 be used? I think this is pretty clear that this is targeting quote unquote influencers who post their personal referral link either on social media or in print, saying, hey, if we see a wave of people use this link, then this is not a friend that you're referring. This is just mass media marketing, at which point you should now be underneath our compliance program rather than the personal program. Trust me, I've had way too much experience over the last few years dealing with this. And we're not going to give you any points because you're not referring friends. You should be in our compliance program. We don't know how you're representing the product. You're doing this at mass scale. So if you reach more than 10, there's a good chance you've publicly posted this somewhere and you aren't going to get any points. So influencers, beware. Chase is coming for you.
Yep, I would say, probably not terribly surprising on this one either. I think, I think, this is a fairly common practice for folks to have a following, and there's not a ton of points to be made on this in general anyway. I mean, look, not that 100,000 points isn't a lot of points, but for influencers, for like a normal person who's listening or watching the show, great that you can pick up, 5 or 10, referrals a year and get these points. But I think, from an influencer standpoint, getting 5 people to sign up over the course of the year, if you have any sort of real following, like that's not a high hurdle to clear. So things to watch for, if you're trying to make sure you max out your bonuses on referrals, great way to pad balances on a yearly basis for those who are looking to add points. Now you just got to be a little bit more careful about how you do it. And before we finish on Chase, Mr. Kerr, also want to talk about a comment that was posted in our Slack community. And for folks that are new to the show, if you want to spend a couple bucks a month helping support the show, production costs, our producer Jeremiah, who's been around for quite some time and does a great job making Mr. Kerr and I look a little bit less dopey each and every week. Thank you, Jeremiah. We've got weekly happy hours. We've got one tonight, actually. Meetups around the country, and we also have some channels in Slack where you can have Mr. Kerr or I or other members of the Slack community answer your questions. New member Melissa. We got Ben M. Thanks to Brian, Dr. Phil, and Ben L., who was one of our very original members, who has a question, not a question today, but he did some digging, Mr. Kerr, on new Chase Sapphire Reserve credits. And you and I have talked extensively about how we feel about the changes. But what's interesting is he dug in, there are a couple of credits that are part of Chase Sapphire Reserve that I didn't understand some of the details. First one was the DoorDash credit. It requires you to have Dash Pass. That's at a fee on a monthly basis or an annual basis. They give you Dash Pass free for the first year, but after that you're paying for it. So there's another expense that you have to use the credit. On top of that, the credit itself is broken down into 2 different chunks. It's one $5 food delivery credit, and I would say the majority of people using DoorDash and Uber Eats are using it for food delivery. But the rest of the credit is 2 $10 non-food delivery credits, which I would say are used significantly less by people than the food delivery stuff. The other credit that he notes that has some pain to it is there are Apple Music and Apple TV Plus subscriptions, but these only work on individual subscriptions. So you can't use them on Apple One, you can't use them on family memberships. So good for a single person who just has like Apple Music, but for me, like I have a family subscription, so that I couldn't use that credit either. I thought these were a couple of good points about something that you and I talk about a lot, which is it's a lot harder to use up these credits than the banks maybe paint the picture for you.
I think my comment in pre-show was you got to have split cells underneath the cells on your Excel sheet to track all this stuff. And again, we beat this horse to death. I'm not doing it. And stop saying that it offsets your annual fee, because in order to use a $5 DoorDash credit, you're going to spend more money than you were initially because of the prices, right? It's not a cost-effective way to get food. Is it convenient? Yes. Is the food going to arrive cold and stale? Yes. Is it worth it? No. So enjoy your $5 credits and paying for way overpriced Taco Bell. And then, the other one's not going to use. So just not for me, man. I'm just not keeping up with this stuff.
Yep. Well, Ben, thanks for posting that in the Slack community. And if you're not a member, we'd love to have you guys join us there. Let's talk a little bit about Flying Blue, Mr. Kerr. This is I won't say it's a trend just yet, but it's not the first time we've seen this. But looks like Air France KLM Elite members are now going to have extra access to award inventory. And if I remember correctly, Mr. Kerr, you might have some stuff.
Yeah, I do. This is from lucky 1 mile at a time. He shows a screenshot of award pricing when he's logged into his Flying Blue account, and he has Flying Blue Platinum, which is our top tier status. Would love to know how he's earned that, because that's a very hard status to earn. I as well, because of the partnership that we have, I'm very lucky to have Flying Blue status, and I have not had a chance since reading this morning to test it out. But I use Flying Blue all the time. Just booked again Nassau to Atlanta nonstop for the family of 4. I'm about to book some Air Baltic flights using Flying Blue miles. Don't forget about that. Even though Air Baltic is not in the SkyTeam Alliance, you can still redeem points for it. So there's no such thing as too many Flying Blue miles. And I'm going to go check this out because Mrs. Kerr still needs a return flight home from Paris, where she's seeing her friend later this fall. And I cannot wait to check this out. But I think it's an incredibly smart move. You are incentivizing the right people to continue to engage with your program, and you are incentivizing the right way people to engage with your program more who are not yet elites to see as another benefit. I would imagine the effect on the P&L from this, because you're supposedly, if you're doing the program right, getting this from your most profitable customers, is not going to have a huge effect versus somebody who just comes in once every 5 years, does a transfer, and is gone. Is it a bit rough for those folks who are, booking award tickets once every few years? Sure. But is it a right way to do this? I think so. And still, remember, this does not mean every price for every flight is up unless you are elite. There are still plenty of fantastic deals to get, especially on the promo routes, which come out every month if you don't have any Flying Blue status. So this by no means is like a punishment for those people who do not have status, more than a reward for people that do have status.
Yeah, I think it's rewarding them for being a big part of the ecosystem. And United used to do this in a more meaningful way. And it was, in the beginning, it was what I would say, call it like very good. And then it reduced itself to good. And now it's sort of like, okay. But I think I like the move by Air France. Sure, I'd love to have more discount inventory available to me as a regular plebe. But I mean, this makes sense, cater to your best customers and offer them some sort of value to stay in the ecosystem. Not easy to get status in Air France KLM Flying Blue if you're based in the U.S. However, Built Rewards did offer an opportunity for this for the Platinum members. So you do still have the ability to earn status that way, and a status match opportunity, which I need to take advantage of, Mr. Kirk.
A lot of people do some great benefits flying Delta, as well as obviously if you're going to be flying any of the Flying Blue airlines, which don't forget, there is more than Air France KLM that use Flying Blue. There's quite a few airlines that use Flying Blue, which you can get benefits on. So a program never to overlook.
Nope. All right. Well, let's go out on the ocean before we finish with some Spirit, Mr. Kerr. And I know we want to talk about Ritz-Carlton cruises, but I got a question for you first. I appreciate that. That's the way this show works, man. It's a beautiful thing. So folks have probably heard the story about a young child that fell off of a Disney cruise ship recently. 5-year-old. And there's some questions about how it happened. We're not getting into that. This story had a happy ending, and I would just prefer to leave it there. But there's this, somebody asked me this question, I don't know, yesterday, day before, and I didn't know about the story. Somebody told me about it. Hey, did you hear about the kid who, fell off of a Disney cruise ship and was rescued? No. And he said, hey, and so here's my question to you. Dad jumped in after the kid. If you're standing there on the rail, do you jump in?
After my kid or after a stranger's kid?
After my
kid. It's funny. Emily asked me the same question. So they're on deck number 4. I think from deck number 4, yes. If I'm in my stateroom on deck number 8 or 9, you're likely not going to be okay when you hit the water. And at that point, you're now not serving any purpose, which would be an incredibly difficult decision. Now, in the heat of the moment, what decision you're going to make? I don't know. Probably going in after the kid, but really stopping to think how high up you are to say the odds of, helping anybody is no. From deck 4, I'm probably jumping in. I can't imagine. There's the videos have shown up that show the rescuers picking them up out of the water. Both of them survived. Dude, I looked it up, and I think one of the articles that I just read this morning is only 20% of people that fall overboard of cruise ships are found. We got a 1 in 5 shot. There's really cool detection systems that these ships have now, an overboard detection system, which fires all kinds of warning bells and whistles, and you'll hear over the loudspeaker, man overboard, port or starboard side. All the crew have very specific actions to take to get a boat in the water as soon as possible, as well as many binoculars and things out onto the ocean. It is, people don't realize this. It is so hard to spot somebody in the water. Even if you are,
especially because a lot of these happen at night.
At night, no chance. It's just not going to happen. You're a goner, unfortunately. But even
Yeah.
during the day, we did man overboard drills on the submarine all the time, and we would throw a dummy out that was just made of like flour bags with straw and broomsticks. And the number of times that we lost sight of that dummy in the middle of the day, even in calm seas, was just amazing. It is so hard to spot somebody in the water that I'm really glad this had a happy ending. So
Yeah.
just be careful, ladies and gentlemen. That it's no joke being up against those railings.
Yeah. So when they asked me this question, I immediately just blurted out yes, because I didn't think about it. Like when they said the 5-year-old went overboard, like just this pit in my stomach, and so like my initial instinct was like, well, yeah, of course I jump in. I want to save my kid. Like I didn't even think about height until you mentioned it. And I'm not saying that's the right choice, because to your point, like what condition are you going to be in when you hit the water? Are you better off finding somebody from the crew? I don't know. I like all that popped into my head was I need to go rescue my kid, and it just like it was this I don't know, Pavlovian reaction to like I want to go try and help. Your 1 in 5 stat is, I mean, to me almost a little bit surprising that it's that high, because like a lot of stories you hear of somebody's drunk, it's it's nighttime and they fall over. It's not that they can't find them, it's that a lot of the people that are going overboard are not in a position to save themselves when they hit the water, even if they're hitting it from a level where they could survive the impact. But I mean, 4 decks up, you're probably at least 50 feet above the water.
It's still going to hurt. So that's why any higher than that is like you're just going to break your back by the time you hit the water. Like it's
especially if you're inebriated, because you're not like at least if you fell off the ship and you got a second or two to think about like, okay, let me try and get myself vertical and not like belly flop. But if you're drunk, that ain't happening.
Terrible.
All right, Ritz-Carlton.
Speaking of great stories on the ocean,
did you book your Ritz-Carlton cruise yet?
I certainly looked up. I looked up the prices and thought, that's a whole lot of Topo Chico. I think I'll just stick to sparkling water.
Topo Chico. Well, this story came to us. You had saw the story on One Mile at a Time, and the interesting thing about the story is just you also mentioned about how there are a number of other companies that are launching luxury cruise ships at the moment. And the headline here is that the Ritz-Carlton Yacht Collection is running at a 55% occupancy across their ships, which is a pretty poor number. And I think you said that you were looking at.
I still have the prices pulled up here.
10. Yeah. All right. So you hit the prices.
I'm looking at Mediterranean cruises right now. Their itineraries this year in September. Some again really cool itineraries. This is a smaller ship that can get into some really cool ports. So going all the way around Italy, going between Greece and Turkey, going like on the Amalfi Coast. But these prices, the cheapest one that I can find right now, cheapest is $10,800 per person. That is the cheapest. Nice. The other things that I'm looking at here, again, depending on some of these really cool itineraries that really get into the small harbors and cities that are off the beaten tourist path. I mean, I'm looking at $18,000 per person. And this is for a base room. Now, every room on the yacht's very nice. And, the reviews I've seen look awesome. But, yeah, they're losing a lot of money, man. They got a third ship coming on board, I think, like as we speak, which is a whole nother boat that you got to fill up. And again, to the competition I was talking about, Amman is bringing on a cruise, Orient Express, which looks fantastic.
I don't even want to think what the Amman is going to charge for a cruise.
The Orient Express is coming online. Then you have all of the luxury, larger things. You got the Viking, it has ocean ships now. You've got Seabourn, you got Crystal Cruises. Like you could argue a different fit for each one of these, but there's just so many options that how are all of these people going to find passengers that are willing to pay $10,000 plus per person. And that's before you get the travel expenses to get to these ports, before you get hotels. So not exactly the people who booked this are really worried about another flight or a hotel, because they probably just, it's a rounding error for them. But that there has to be like the amount of time that we've seen luxury travel grow this year. Like there's got to be a place once you get to this level of cost. Like I'm not talking about like a super nice $800 to $1,000 per night hotel. That's one thing, but like $10,000 per person starting, that's a whole different level. That's rough, man. And the numbers it looks like is they're projected to be profitable 2027, 28. And looking at those numbers and the current occupancy, I'm just not seeing that myself. Again, not as a cruise expert by any means, but that's a whole lot of money to make up in just a couple of years, especially with the third ship online to operate.
Yeah, and in what is probably not the most ideal economy for that level of luxury travel. But the ships are here, and they got to find a way to fill them or park them.
Dude, what if they parked one of their brand new ships? That would be something. That'd be Be pretty rough. They do have some Caribbean itineraries that are a little bit cheaper, but a little bit cheaper. You are still talking $6,000 per person. So bit rough, but
Yeah.
they do look fantastic. And I hope one day to have that much money to sneeze into the wind and not think about it.
All right, let's cover the opposite end of the spectrum and some Spirit Airlines stuff before we.
Speaking of luxury cruises, Spirit.
Speaking of luxury cruises, so from a tweet or from a, what do you call a blue sky?
I think that people call it a blue sky, from a blue sky.
From a blue sky that Richard shared, Spirit removed 37 routes from its September schedule this week. September capacity cuts by station: 45% out of Atlanta, 23% DFW, 18% ORD, 17% Newark, 12% Detroit, 12% LAX. Spirit is now down 21% versus September of last year. The last line of the tweet, Blue Sky, is the one that I think is the only inaccurate part. It says all but one route return in October. And all I would say about that is that I would just say that just means they haven't pulled down their October yet.
Yeah, exactly. That's, versus current schedule. Yeah, again, this caught my eye because of, obviously, Atlanta. We've seen Southwest lose half of their route map out of Atlanta. Spirit now losing 45%. The only folks that are expanding is Frontier out of Atlanta, which is, again, great to see from that. But I've just seen what Delta is charging for flights out of Atlanta now, and it is just crazy, man. Like, again, most of the time I book within 3 weeks of departure. Even some of them are further out flights. Like, it is just so expensive compared to other options that I'm just not a fan of this. I love the Spirit big front seat. I misspoke in pre-show. They are still flying once a day to Vegas, which is great because I got to go out to Vegas, and I'm looking at this price right now, and the big front seat to Vegas is cheaper than Delta Economy. So I am absolutely flying Spirit out to Vegas on this once a day flight. Fingers crossed it goes off on time, because if it doesn't, you're out of luck for the day. But it's a bummer, man. Spirit continues to struggle for, I don't necessarily want to say survival, but I don't know what other word to say at this point. Cranky Flyer also covered that it's now changing their package names. Now you have Value, Premium, Economy, and Spirit First, which fits into the mold that people understand versus the Go Savvy stuff that they had before, which people were just not going to put into their daily vernacular. So this makes sense. Again, not too bad. I'm looking at Atlanta to Vegas in August. So well over a month out. It's $92 for Value, which again is a seat, and you got to pay for everything else. Up into Premium Economy, which is a more spacey to carry-on bag, no change or cancel fee. You go from $92 to $197, so $102 extra, which again still way cheaper than Delta, and you're looking at a relatively comfortable flight out there. And then for Spirit First, which is big front seat, Wi-Fi, premium drinks and snacks included, all the stuff, you go from $92 up to $317 one way. Which again, $317 for domestic first class to Vegas on a 4-hour flight. That's, to me, this is solid value, and I'll be picking it up right after we get done recording.
I don't disagree with you. I'll take the first part first, though, because one of the things that just still boggles me about this change, like when you talked about Delta and the price premium that they're charging, as well as I think you said you've seen some of the round trip pricing coming into play on Delta.
It is so bad now. Round trip pricing, you are heavily penalized for booking one-way Delta flights now, and that absolutely stinks for us.
So, I understand slot restricted places like LaGuardia or JFK or something like that, but take the other destinations that Delta is flying out of Atlanta, and why can't Spirit find a way to compete nibbling around the edges? Scott Kirby talks Scott Kirby's the CEO of United, but Scott Kirby talks all the time about spill, meaning like how much they let go to other carriers, and the fact that they control their spill, and whatever they're losing is flights they want to lose anyway. Just given the size of Delta's operation in Atlanta, it says one of two things to me. Either Spirit is just really bad right now at figuring out how to compete, or Delta is really great at spilling only unprofitable business that they're dropping 45% of their routes after Southwest has already dropped. So it's unbelievable to me that this is the biggest market on their list.
I've said it so many times here that talking locally here in the Atlanta area, when people talk about airfares or they talk about flying, the word flying and Delta are the same. The word searching for airfare in delta.com is the same. People do not even evaluate the other options here because they just are convinced that Delta is the best. And anytime I bring up and show, hey, here's my on-time performance this year. Here's the price of like, especially destinations like New York or Orlando that have 4 airlines flying out of it, the significant savings you can have. Like people just don't even want to hear it, which props to the Delta brand team for getting people that drunk on your Kool-Aid that they don't even want to like acknowledge that other options exist, man. But it is just wild. I mean, that flight that I was getting back from, so we're going to Baja Mar in August, and I needed the return flight. I got the flight there through Miami, 5,000 American miles per person when they had that deal months ago. Fantastic. You know, after a vacation, I'm willing to pay a premium to get the nonstop flight home because you just want to get home, right? Like the last thing on a travel day home you want to do is connect. So I was like, all right, let me see what Delta's doing on this nonstop. $417 per person one way because I'm not buying round trip. It's an hour and a half flight. Now, granted, the Bahamas departure taxes are a little steep. I think it's $95 per person, but you know, still then you're talking $320 per person one way for an hour and a half flight on a 737. And I'm like, this is just outrageous. What are the options? You got to go connect somewhere. Or luckily in my case, Flying Blue did have availability on the nonstop Delta flight, which again, no such thing as too many Flying Blue miles. So book that 9,000 miles per person. Again, got to pay the $100 because of the Bahamas departure taxes. So that stinks. But you know, I look at it as subsidizing a $417 ticket with 9,000 Flying Blue miles and paying, you know, 9,000 Flying Blue miles worth $300 instead of paying $400. So $400 out of pocket to fly home on the nonstop again, but that's versus well over $1,200 for the family. Like that's a win, man. But it's so expensive to fly Delta terminating or originating in Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this one's a puzzler to me, and I think we'll talk some more. I want to do some research on some comments that one of our Slack members affectionately referred to as the Points Goblin. We're talking about hubs and Seattle and Alaska versus Delta, and I want to do some Cirium research to come back with some numbers, have a discussion.
This is not a conversation of at fault at Delta. Like I'm a huge fan of free market economics and supply and demand. Yeah. If the people around here are going to be that blind and pay it, good on Delta. Yeah. I am not. Like I am. For the most part, like I am not.
Yeah. Yep. No, definitely agree. All right. Well, I think that's a place to pin it, Mr. Kerr. I hope that you have a great week on the road. I am sad that I won't be seeing you anytime soon, but hopefully our paths will cross.
The lovely New York City awaits, and the forecast continues to change for my travel dates. It's July 4th weekend. You know, on the Sunday I'll be flying. The Atlanta airport yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, they put out a video. You could not get in to the Atlanta airport. The security line went outside, which if you know how big the Atlanta airport is, that is absolutely absurd. That I am so not looking forward to trying to get up to New York City Sunday because I just know it's not going to go well. Like I just know.
I don't envy you. I am glad not to be heading to New York anytime soon. My having to bail for the train was should have been as expected, but we're leaving out of JFK, and I had 3 options for how to get there because I waited a little bit too long to book a way up there. I did find some cheap flights. I was not willing to risk our trip to Europe by relying on New York airspace, so I quickly ruled that option out. Amtrak, which has not rolled out their new trains yet, wanted just shy of $500 a person for the one-way Acela trip from DC to New York Penn Station. So I chose the $169 one-way car rental from Avis.
There you go. Way to do it.
Yep. Don't love it, but it's the most reliable right now. I'm not trusting inbound New York airspace. I'm just not for a trip.
Wish I didn't have to, but here we are.
Here we are. All right, Mr. Kerr, safe travels to New York. I hope you don't get stuck in any of these horrible delays and you keep dodging the raindrops, as it were, on your way to and from New York City. I will be thinking about you over in Europe and all the wonderful things that you're doing in New York while we're gallivanting around London and Sardinia and Rome. Until we upload again, Mr. Kerr, we've got miles to go.
Good
hey guys, welcome back to the Mile.
Man, it's 11 a.m. on a Wednesday. It's time to crack open this Coors Light. By that I mean Kroger Seltzer Water, 0 calories, caffeine free.